Hey everybody, I am joined by Scott Duthie today from one of our elite partners, Pomerol Partners, and excited to talk to him about a couple different things. Scott, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kurt. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into Pomerol a little bit. You guys are an elite partner. You guys have been a great partner for a while. Used you guys for a bunch of different things, but there's some cool pieces that you all have been working on with some of our newer products, AutoML, and some of the workflow automation through Qlik application automation. Can you talk a little bit about what Pomerol is doing around AutoML and some of the success that you all are having?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we see a ton of potential with machine learning. We've been working on machine learning projects with many of our clients for, quite a few years now. So we're pretty excited when AutoML got released into the SaaS platform. So really, we're talking to all of our analytics clients about what it would take for them to start leveraging machine learning and start solving some of the problems they're tackling today with just traditional analytics, how they could really take that a step further with machine learning. Some of the most common use cases that we're tackling, one would be cash flow forecasting. So almost every customer that we work with, regardless of industry, they have a finance department and cash flow is always on their radar. So yeah, that's a really big one that we've been tackling.
What have you seen as the biggest issue when people are like, we want to move into machine learning, we're excited about this, we know we can leverage it, which is great, and I want to sell it to you, but there always seems to be a gap in between of we have the data, but the data isn't ready. Can you speak to kind of what you see as the biggest struggle to get them into AutoML?
I think the first thing we always try and explain to people or educate customers on is that analytics projects and machine learning projects are very different. A typical analytics project might be like, we need to build a dynamic P&L for multiple business divisions. I know we can build that if the data exists. And so I can say, look, that's going to take a week. And then at the end, you will get this. Whereas a machine learning project is experimental and iterative by nature. So you have to get into the mindset that we might work on this for a week and just to prove that this approach is not valid and we need to go down a different road. So that's probably the first piece, is just structuring the organization of the project correctly. The next thing we look for is data and good data quality. So we need really good data, consistent, clean data, so that we get a consistent, clean machine learning model. So those are a couple of big things that we look for, or that we sort of address early on.
And I love that separating the two, like an analytics project from an ML project, makes a ton of sense. That I don't think I've heard anybody really break down like that. But you're absolutely right, is we have to keep trying things and we may prove it wrong, but the hope is we prove it wrong quickly so we move on to the next thing and keep going. So I like that.
Another really important piece there is you've actually you have to spend a bit of time actually crafting and defining what the ML problem is you're trying to solve. So I'll give you an example with cash flow forecasting. Often the first thing people think of is, okay, great, that's a time series forecast where we want to predict cash flow, money in and money out, and what the difference looks like. We want to predict that by day or week or month. But once you start digging into the real problem you're trying to solve, it might be that we've got vendors that are paying us late and they're never paying us when invoices are due. So what we actually want to predict is, based on this vendor's historical payment history, how late are they going to be on this invoice? And if we can get that prediction right, we now have a very clean cash flow forecast. So it's actually molding and understanding the problem you're trying to solve, and getting that right. That's actually what often leads to success.
I also know you guys are doing some great workflow automation through Qlik application. Can you share a little bit about that too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's another, kind of recent module in SaaS that we're seeing a lot of value in. Yeah, it's just the power of it. There's a ton of connectors there. And when people ask me, okay, what can we do with application automation? I essentially say, look, we can get data from anywhere. We can transform that data and enrich it, and then we can send it anywhere else. And we're using the power of Qlik in the middle to automate that process and to run that workflow and to take care of that piece in the middle, which is transforming, enriching, cleaning, filtering, joining that data before we go and push it somewhere else. So that's one of the biggest use cases. I did a session at Qlik's annual conference last year, where we looked at doing sales analytics out of Salesforce. So, analyzing a company's sales pipeline. And we gave users the ability to actually update their sales opportunities and push that data back into Salesforce live straight from their Qlik dashboard without ever logging into Salesforce. So instead of jumping between these two SaaS platforms, they could run their sales pipeline, they could do what-if scenario modeling, and then if they were happy with their adjustments, they could push those to Salesforce. And all of that was using Qlik application automation in the background to run that workflow. So there's great connectors in there for the Salesforce APIs that could be used to push those edits back into Salesforce. So yeah, really, really great example, simple example to create a really good user experience for sales teams. And to make them more efficient and leveraging that app automation workflow. Really powerful stuff.
That's awesome. Have you, I know that I remember you presenting last year at the conference. Did you do a recording of that, or have you redone a webinar on that? Or is there any way that people could go and watch that, or should we work on getting one together?
So there is actually a great video, and I can share the link on that. So we distilled that 45-minute session down into maybe a 5-minute video that walks through that entire workflow and actually gets into the weeds of how we built it, how we set it up, and all the different components that created that workflow. So yeah, I can definitely share that.
Excellent. I'll make sure to put that link in the comments then so that people have that. That's awesome. So one of the other cool things that you guys were a front runner in this was within Qlik SaaS or cloud, we call it both things. There is a limitation on not being able to do writeback yet, but you guys were kind of first to the game in that and bringing writeback in. Talk a little bit about what Pomerol did and why you guys created that writeback solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, where this really started was actually a request we had from a client. They were using Qlik Sense and they had an external machine learning platform, and they were using Qlik to prepare data, pass it to a machine learning model, and then analyze the results in a Qlik dashboard. And their request was, well, we've got false positives or false negatives in here, and we want to actually add some comments and have that feedback to the data science team so that this machine learning model becomes, supervised and there's a feedback loop. And so we actually built the extension originally just for that use case. And in building that, we realized that, wow, there's actually applications for this everywhere. So if a user can set a target or a goal or change a status or allocate this task to a person or check a tick box or anything like that, then you could really operationalize your dashboards. So instead of your dashboards just being the end of the road, the analytics that's consume only, you could have users actually feed back into that. So, we probably started this journey about 5 years ago, and we have this implemented with most of our clients across all industries. A use case that we're working on this week with a manufacturer is using the writeback as a tactical master data management tool. So they have 12 ERP systems, and in all of those ERP systems, the customer name is different. Mm-hmm. And they've just got a really simple workflow where they say, okay, customer X exists in these 12 different systems, and they use the writeback to say, we want to map all of that to this one golden record. It writes that data back into Snowflake, and then that is now a mapping or a reference table that can be used across the whole reporting architecture to say, whenever you find this customer name, it should appear like this. So actually a pretty simple workflow to solve a big problem.
So I wanted to talk about Qlik Connect. It was Qlik World. It's now being rebranded as Qlik Connect with the acquisition of Talend. Yep. We first met each other last year at Qlik Connect. It's coming up in June. Why do you, as a partner and a user of Qlik, why do you see it important for our customers to attend this event?
Great question. So if I had to really distill that down, I would say to see what's possible, to understand the art of what's possible in this technology stack, and to understand how you can get value out of your investment in Qlik if you're an existing customer. So, for me, the conference is sort of a one-stop shop for everything from the strategic vision of Qlik as a whole and as a technology, the product roadmap, and then you start getting further into the weeds. The breakout sessions are amazing for seeing real use cases of how people are implementing the technology and getting value out of the solution. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me is I always leave a little bit inspired because I've seen what someone else is doing that I hadn't thought of or I hadn't seen or heard of before. So I always leave there with new ideas. As a service provider, we leave with those ideas and we're immediately thinking which customers might get value out of those ideas. So yeah, it's an inspirational kind of few days for us.
Scott, also, what have been your favorite parts about the Qlik conferences and events that you've been to in the past?
So a big one for me is actually the vendor hall. And what I really like about the vendor hall is, it's a bit unstructured and open format. We're not having to listen to, a presentation for an hour. You can roam the floor, go and find people that you want to talk to, vendors that you're interested in. There's stalls in there for different Qlik teams, which I love. So you can go talk to the machine learning AutoML product team or go talk to the app automation team. And then there's third-party vendors in there. So some are service providers that help people get value out of the Qlik platform, and others have third-party products and integrations. And yeah, I always find just, wandering up to the stalls, asking people about their product, what you can do with it. And you often then meet other Qlik users and you start chatting to them about, why are you interested? Why are you talking to this guy? And you start hearing about their use cases. So it's just a sort of open form, casual event where you can sort of go and, follow your nose and see what you find. And you always discover something. You'll meet great people, chat to vendors. And again, it just builds that whole, the art of what's possible. You go and meet some third-party vendors and you'd never thought that there was, this particular product or tool that would integrate with Qlik's platform, and it starts you thinking about what's possible.
One of my favorite parts is some of what you said is you can wander around, but like when we eat, when there's snacks, because listen, if you go to this thing, you will most likely gain weight because there's always snacks laying around, right? But one of my favorite things is just picking. Everybody loves to stay with who they know, but last year, being a part of Qlik, I wandered to different tables and I just plopped down and be like, so you use Qlik. Tell me how you're using it. Tell me your story. Tell me what's exciting for you. And just sitting about hearing those stories, right? And you were saying getting inspired is some of the best part because they're using it in a specific way that you might be using it, but they've done something just ever so slightly different that is like a light bulb goes off in your brain and you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And you're networking and you're connecting and you're looping back to them after. Tell me that again. Show me how you're doing that. And there's just such this camaraderie there of like sharing ideas about like, we ran into that problem. This is how we overcame it, or we haven't run into that problem yet, but we were about to go down that avenue. That is my favorite part of just letting people open up and share their stories about just not from the stage too, just like in those little sessions as they're walking to rooms about like, hey, this was our issue. So encouragement to everybody, if you go, ask people questions that are sitting next to you that you might be nervous to talk to, but we're all there using the same product and excited to be there. So that's that. My last question would be, we have some people probably looking at this, looking at budget right now. They're on the fence, not sure if they should go or not. What would you say to those people kind of sitting on the fence?
It's a great opportunity to sort of break out of your silo, right? If you're an analytics team manager or a developer or a consultant, you only know what you know. You only know what you're exposed to. It's just a great opportunity to break out of that silo and go and meet others and see the product and hear about where it's going and sort of get a bit of bigger picture thinking, bigger picture ideas. I mean, if you want to be a football player, you can't just train in your backyard forever by yourself, right? You need to go to training camp. You need to see what others do, learn from others, and absorb the bigger picture. And so that's kind of the analogy for me. It's go and throw yourself in the mix, see what's going on, hear what's going on. It's the conference is short. It's over a few days, but it's absolutely jam-packed. So, there's good value there. And yeah, you get to go to Orlando. So
Well, Scott, thanks so much for taking some time talking through with me. I'm excited to see you at Qlik Connect on June 3rd and 5th, and we'll get to meet up there. Everybody, Scott will be walking around. He'll be in a really nice looking suit because he always is. And then if you're not sure, he'll talk and then you'll hear the accent and you'll know it's him. So make sure to look him up as he's walking around. Pomerol has some great features too. We'll make sure to link to them. But Scott, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
thanks for having me on, Kurt. Always a pleasure.